So we watched What Lies Beneath. Uh, this is from 2000, so it's a fairly old movie. Stars Harrison Ford and Michelle Pfeiffer, directed by Robert Zemeckis, which was this is a bit of a surprise. This isn't something he normally does. Uh,
Yeah, this movie in general has a lot of weird combinations because, you, I don't think of DreamWorks as being a live action company anymore, but it was made by DreamWorks.
yeah,
It's a Fox movie, but it's streaming um, on the Max,
the Max. Yeah.
which I think that some of the stuff that's come out, like I think Avatar 2 streamed on HBO Max.
Right. Yeah, and it's also on Disney Plus.
Right.
So that's
It makes me wonder if Fox had some sort of pre-existing streaming contract with Warner Brothers that carried over after the Disney purchase. Because like Free Guy went up on HBO Max, and so did some of the other Fox newbies.
yeah, and Paramount too. I've noticed quite a few Paramount stuff on there. Like I think all of the Star Trek movie. Well, every Star Trek movie 1 through 10 I think is on Paramount or is on Max.
Interesting.
So yeah, that's interesting.
What tangled webs we weave. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
Before we get into the actual movie, so I haven't been an HBO Max subscriber for a while, but I decided to re-up to the Max just to give it a try out. The app is functionally identical, which means that unfortunately, just like the previous version, I had to stop to buffer 4 times in the course of the movie.
Uh,
Now I have pretty decent internet, and it never happens with Hulu or Netflix or has it happened
mm,
with Paramount? No, I don't think it's happened with Paramount. So I
yeah.
and I remember that happening a lot. Like when my friends and I were remote watching Godzilla versus Kong, I kept having to pause.
Uh, and yeah, I haven't had that issue, but it there have been times, yeah, it has been a little buggy, and obviously they still need to work through those bugs with this new app. It's yeah,
Which is weird because it's just the old app with a new coat of paint.
pretty much, yeah. And I'm using the same account from HBO Max, and it picked up right where I left off with over there, so it's weird. Yeah.
The nicest thing I'll say is that I signed up for the cheapy ad-supported version, and they did not show me an ad before this. So, that's decent of them at least.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's good of them.
All right, so we've talked about the plate long enough. Let's talk about the meal.
Yeah, yes. Yeah. So, what lies beneath is about it's it. Well, I should say it's a ghost story movie, ghost story drama,
Or is it?
or is it? Yeah, murder mystery. Although most ghost stories are murder mysteries. Like there's an old movie called the Changeling with George C. Scott, kind of similar vibe with this, which actually takes place in your neck of the woods, right up in Seattle.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Uh,
But anyway, back to this movie. It's This movie's about a couple, middle-aged couple, played by the aforementioned Harrison Ford and Michelle Pfeiffer, the Spencers, Norman and Claire.
mhm.
And it starts off with them taking Claire's daughter and Norman's stepdaughter off to college. So now they are empty nesters, and they things start happening around the house. That Claire gets kind of wrapped up in. So one of the things with any movie like this is you have red herrings,
Mhm.
and uh, one of the red, and I should say the red herring is of course with um,
Before we get into this too far, do we want to do like a non-spoiler take and then go into spoilers, or you think
Uh,
anybody who's wants to hear this 25-year-old movie discussed is probably okay with spoilers?
um, that's a good question because, yeah, like you said, this movie is, yeah, like almost 25 years old, but at the same time, it's like it's kind of obscure, and people really there probably are a few people who haven't seen it, and there is a twist at the end. Um, so I guess keep it. We'll do like non-spoiler, and then we'll give a spoiler warning, and then yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
All right. So non-spoiler.
yeah.
So Michelle Pfeiffer, what, Norma was it?
Claire.
Claire, that's right, Norman. See, I am
Norman.
so
Yeah,
bad with character names.
it's all right.
But it's interesting because the initial setup is it does a very good job making you question if she's just insane
Yeah,
because her only daughter has just gone off to college. They've recently moved to a new area, this big house in this rich neighborhood by the lake,
yeah,
and she has a husband who is incredibly busy with his work.
yeah,
So it's like you get some like empty nest, some isolation, some desperation. Her only friend is this kooky wine-aunt, basically,
yeah. Pretty much. Yeah, yeah,
before the term was made.
yeah. Yeah, and so she has a lot of free time on her hands, which is, kind of a big part of it. And you also find out that she was a musician, a cellist,
Mhm.
and and she gave that up when she got married.
Right. And the- for the non-spoiler aspect of it, they do a pretty good job layering up the mystery as they go.
Right.
Because, at first it's like, okay, you think that one thing is going on, and then it's like, oh, that couldn't possibly be the case because you can't murder a live person.
Right. Yeah.
I will say one of my favorite moments in the movie is when she goes to see her therapist, and the therapist is saying, "Now I know that many people go resist going to therapy because they're worried I'm going to say that they're crazy. Don't worry, I have to wait at least 3 visits before I can do that."
Yeah.
That was a joke.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's like for a non-spoiler broad strokes thing, I'd say this is a worthwhile movie in a genre I don't often expose myself to because it's
Yeah.
very much like a Rear Window mixed with suburban housewife empty nest desolation.
Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, I would agree. Yeah, and it has and it there's definitely, like you say, you're the entire time you're watching it, you're questioning whether or not what she's experiencing is real,
Hmm.
or yeah, if she's losing her mind, or yeah, it kind of runs the gambit.
Yeah, it's so I would say since it is just on streaming, if you have a service that provides it, give it a watch. It's
Yeah.
it's it's 2 hours well spent.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
All right. So if you stumbled across this separate review and don't want to know what happens, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I was not expecting Harrison Ford to actually be a villain.
Yeah. Yeah, I wasn't either.
Like that's very much playing its type because I can't think of a single movie I've seen where he was just outright the villain.
Yeah, I can't think of any either. And I think that plays well. It plays into the storytelling, and I would say he was perfectly cast because
Hmm.
it makes the twist work because you wouldn't expect him to be a bad guy.
Yeah, like you think that the worst he is that he's um, uncaring,
Yeah,
very self-involved.
yeah, he's very and dismissive, and he's
Hmm.
I would also say very insecure.
Hmm.
You kind of notice that in various parts of the movie, especially when they bring up his father.
Hmm.
It's he's kind of like, because I guess his father was like a big, like a well-known
Mathematician.
mathematician, right? And so he's kind of feels like he's living in his father's shadow.
Right. He's like a genetic scientist.
Yeah.
The movie's also good at leaving you a nice little like setting up Chekhov's guns.
Hmm. It's still muted.
Actually, are they good if they're blatantly obvious and I noticed them like immediately? Like Daniel could tell you that. Harrison Ford's character works in a genetics lab,
Mhm.
and they're talking about how they have this chemical that, oh yeah, it'll paralyze a mammal for about 5 minutes.
Yeah. 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 It was a pretty obvious. Yeah, like you said, I don't wouldn't necessarily call it a good one because it was kind of glaringly obvious. Yeah.
They call that lamp shading, and this was like a street lights lampshade.
Yeah.
Um, Now, I alluded to this earlier. Yeah, it would count as a spoiler, but she initially thinks that her new neighbor has killed his wife.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. This was the red herring that I was alluding to earlier. Yeah.
Yeah, like there's and they do a good job of faking you out with it because they present the neighbor as being an asshole,
Mhm.
and uh, and the wife is being like acting terrified and nervous.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a whole scene in there where Michelle Pfeiffer's talking to her through the fence, and yeah, and the
Right.
setup of it is really good. Because you don't see her face. You only like see her eye, and yeah,
Or a mouth, and
yeah, yeah.
so, so it's very disconcerting, and also, you know, they have the wine aunt mention that she comes by with the welcome basket with a bottle of wine and a couple
Hmm.
of goodies, and she's rear windowing through through their window, watching him hold it like he has the basket. He's tossing aside the card and the other stuff, and he takes a bottle, tosses the basket aside, and just starts drinking straight from it.
Yeah.
And the wife hasn't been seen for a bit. But then then the red herring is exposed as she confronts him with Harrison Ford acting desperate and or embarrassed and like, you killed your wife, tell us. And then the wife walks up.
Yeah. What are you talking about? She's right here.
To quote the Simpsons episode, after Principal Skinner explained why Bart hadn't killed him in court, uh,
Yeah.
Your Honor, I demand that that man's testimony be stricken from the record. Denied.
Denied. Yeah. Or or Homer, like we still haven't figured, with
Oh, with
Ned
Mayor
Flanders,
Quimby's
like
nephew.
we still haven't solved the mystery of the whereabouts of your wife. I'm right here. Oh, I see.
I guess everything's
Everything
wrapped
fits
up in a
into a
nice,
nice.
neat little package. so, uh, and they also have a few other swerves. Harrison Ford appears to try to commit, or no, it's like a question if he tried to commit suicide or if they just happened to have the mistake of having the hairdryer plugged in while he was trying to take a bath.
Yeah. Yeah, that part that's the part that I didn't get. Like why he tried to fake that. Was he trying to get sympathy from her?
That seems like a good, that might be one where it's more a swerve for the audience than a choice that makes sense in character.
Yeah.
Like he did intentionally, like he did mention later he did do that intentionally just to maybe he was trying to throw her off the trail, like because
Yeah.
so I think we could talk about what actually happened. Um,
Yeah.
I think what actually happened is that he had at some point had an affair with one of his students,
Right.
and he, I do not believe did she kill herself or
No, he killed her.
he did actually kill her.
Yeah,
Okay,
he killed her. Yeah.
okay, yeah, killed her. Then I think he drove her car into the lake,
Right.
which is why
Yeah.
the ghost kept appearing in the lake.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and he buried her like whatever that chest thing was with all of her things in it.
Right, like because earlier on she found um, a a key for a little box,
Right.
like an old school jewelry box.
Yeah.
So that was kind of intriguing. So that was like a nice little bit of like, yeah, hmm, actually, I don't know if that's a nice little bit of misdirection. More like it's a neat detail, I guess, is the
Yeah.
way to put it.
Yeah. Yeah, and of course that was the whole thing was the student went missing, and I'm trying to remember how. Oh, that's right. She the that's the spirit that's haunting her,
Right, it
or
is the student.
is the student. Yeah, and so Michelle Pfeiffer does some digging and then finds out where she meets her mom and
Hmm.
finds out more about her, and then she finds the lock of her hair,
Hmm.
and she takes the lock of her hair with her to the house, and then she gets possessed by the dead girl.
Right. That was this. That was see that makes something click for me. Is that like the scene where she was being super amorous with him,
Yeah,
and then suddenly said something. Don't let your wife find out.
yeah,
And then he freaks out and knocks her to the ground.
yeah. Well, and I don't know if you noticed, but it was kind of like a split second, but her face changed.
Now I missed that.
Yeah, it was really quick, but yeah,
Okay.
it changed to the dead girl's face.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Uh,
uh, yeah.
so yeah. So and you also wonder if Harrison was like sterile or something because they he basically like the daughter was not his,
Right.
and he had married her as a single mother and have been caring for the two of them all these years. So you wonder if part of his psychological stuff was, not being cuckolded, but you know what I mean. It's like having to raise somebody else's kid.
Yeah. 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 I think that had a lot to do with it. Yeah. Yeah. Hey, Ninja, it's good to see you. So she's a Two Face? No, I don't think that's quite right.
So yeah, that's basically the mystery of it. He uses the magical so a motif in this movie is the bathtub. It's
Yeah.
just like like the water is constantly a source of danger.
Hmm.
So like his way of dealing with her is to use the magical paralyzing liquid and then filling up the bathtub with water. It's
Right.
very tense scene as she's like sitting there completely unable to move.
Yeah. And she slowly gains control of her extremities. Like she can kind of move her fingers, and she kind of wiggle her toes, and yeah, it's yeah, and you pointed this out when we were talking about it, uh that his reaction when she's in the tub, and then all of a sudden their dog comes in, and he's like, "Oh, hey."
Hey boy, I want to go for a walk. And like the dog is clearly worried or something, but
Yeah, it's like like that, yeah, that's the moment when he crossed into the realm of evil.
well, at the very least, it made you. It was like there to it was like there to underline. No, this is the final twist.
Yeah.
He's dag nasty evil.
Yeah.
So ultimately, it's a tale of supernatural revenge mixed with a thriller. Michelle Pfeiffer really does a great job of carrying this movie because I notice we keep giving Harrison the top billing, but that really is backwards.
Yeah, yeah, this is Michelle Pfeiffer's movie. Yeah, she has the most screen time. It revolves mostly around her character. Of course, this being Hollywood, especially in the 2000s, Harrison Ford was the more bankable star, and
Right.
so he got top billing and more than likely got paid more.
Yeah. Though I mean, it worked out. I looked up this movie on the numbers just on a whim, and it made $250 million in its original box office run.
That's really good for a movie like this, and back then, yeah.
Yeah, it kind of makes you appreciate just, everyone talks about the death of the mid-budget movie. Although I think actually no, I don't think this was mid-budget for the time. Uh,
No, it was like 90 million, I think. It had a pretty good price tag on it. I think most of that
yeah, I
was
think it was 90, 100.
yeah, I think most of that was Ford and Pfeiffer's pay.
Most likely. Yeah, 90 million.
Yeah.
Actually, nearly 300 million at the time. So, yeah, this was well received. This was a, I should say, no, I think this movie was probably well received.
Yeah. Of course, the other thing too is it came like we said, it came out in 2000. Uh, what movie came out the year before?
Harrison Ford movie or
No, uh, supernatural horror movie.
Blair Witch? No. I it is not my genre. I'm sorry. I've never
Uh,
even guessed
um,
this.
I was thinking of The Sixth Sense.
Oh, yeah. So that was like, yeah, I guess that was the it thing at the time.
Yeah, yeah, because in that movie did really well. And anytime you have a genre movie that makes a lot of money,
Hmm.
studios are just gonna be like, we need to do our own
Yep.
genre movie with that. Yeah,
Although if that was the inspiration, it's way less of a blatant copycat than a lot of Hollywood productions. So good on them
yeah,
there.
yeah. I would agree. Yeah. So, so yeah, I would definitely definitely recommend this movie.
Yeah, I mean,
If
like
you,
we can poke little holes in it here and there.
yeah,
Take those as writing lessons for ourselves, not to be quite so blatant with your or with your Chekhov's guns.
yeah, yeah,
But as an actual experience, it was very good. I
yeah.
like you're just comparing it to The Sixth Sense. I feel like The Sixth Sense lies to you.
Oh yeah, it does. Yeah,
Like like I was kind of enjoying ish it until the end, where it's like, oh, and your perceptions are going to tell you that you're like, yes, you have the obvious questions. How did he go for so long without noticing that nobody, like, he wasn't eating anything and nobody was actually talking with him? It's like, oh, your brain will fill in the gaps. Like, oh, screw you, M. Night Shyamalan, ding dong.
yeah,
You
yeah.
can't just
But
hand, if the whole thing is you're supposed to be able to tell from the context that he was dead all along, you can't just hand wave away
yeah,
those details.
yeah, yeah. Uh, but yeah,
Yeah.
um,
So Daniel, thank you for the suggestion.
yeah, yeah. You're
Are you
welcome.
just gonna watch this on your own, or
Um, yeah, I was gonna watch it on my own.
oh, cool? You have a more balanced movie diet than I do.
Uh,